They gave him 2 days. Just 2 days to cut down a 120-year-old oak. The tree had watched his daughter take her first steps. It shaded her swing set. It held the tire swing his father hung before he passed. Jake Mercer refused. And that's when the war began. The fines came first, $250 for non-compliance. Then another $250 for failure to submit a removal plan. By month 3, it was over $200. Then came the lien, a legal claim on his home. The HOA called it a safety hazard. Jake called it the heart of his family's story. But when the chainsaws arrived at dawn, something no one expected happened. Because Jake wasn't just defending a tree. He was protecting a secret buried in its roots, one that would expose lies, unravel power, and turn the entire neighborhood against itself. What did they find when the first blade hit the trunk? Why did the HOA president collapse in tears before the tree even fell? This isn't about property lines. It's about what happens when a community forgets its soul and one man decides to take it back. Why would cutting down a single tree force an entire HOA to beg for mercy? Keep watching, because the truth is darker than you think. Jake wasn't the kind of man who made waves. He lived on a quiet corner lot in Willow Creek Estates, a planned neighborhood where sidewalks curved like afterthoughts, and every lawn was a little too green. His 2-story colonial, soft beige like old parchment, sat slightly back from the street. Nothing flashy, nothing loud, just home. 10 years ago, he and his wife Claire moved in when their daughter Lily was born. The house was a fresh start, mortgages tight, dreams packed in cardboard, and the giant oak in the backyard? It was already there, older than the neighborhood, roots cracking the patio stones, branches that danced across Lily's bedroom wall at night. Jake loved that tree. He hung Christmas lights on it every year. He built the tire swing when Lily turned 5 laughing as she spun in dizzy circles. When Claire's father passed, he planted lavender and white roses at its base, her dad's favorite. It wasn't just a tree. It was memory. It was family. Willow Creek had rules, everyone knew that. Quarterly newsletters reminded people where to place trash bins, how long holiday lights could stay up, and that basketball hoops were banned after 6 p.m. Most rolled their eyes and paid the fees. It was the price of order. But everything changed when the new board took over. It started small. Fines for unapproved mailbox paint, letters demanding the removal of a bird feeder labeled attracting nuisance wildlife. Then came Diane Caldwell, retired paralegal, clipboard in hand, smile that never reached her eyes. She didn't wave when she saw Jake mowing. She inspected. And then, one Tuesday morning, a crisp white envelope appeared in his mailbox. Notice of violation. Hazardous vegetation. Jake stared at the words, then at the oak, its leaves shimmering in the breeze, its trunk broad and unshaken by time. Hazardous? He read the letter twice. The HOA claimed the tree posed a risk to adjacent properties, required immediate assessment, possible removal. Just a formality, they said. Routine. But something in the tone, the cold precision, the lack of a phone call set his gut on edge. This wasn't about safety, and Jake had a feeling if he didn't stand his ground now, he wouldn't just lose a tree. He'd lose the last piece of his family's story. The letter wasn't a warning. It was a declaration of war typed in 12-point Times New Roman. Jake called the HOA the next morning. Expected a misunderstanding. Maybe they mixed up his tree with the dead pine down the street. But the woman on the phone read from a script. Per Section 7.3 of the Covenants, any tree within 10 feet of a property line deemed structurally unsound by a certified arborist is subject to removal at the owner's expense. Jake didn't own the neighboring lot. Didn't even know who did. The tree's trunk was solidly on his land. Its roots had never cracked a pipe, never threatened a foundation. But the HOA didn't care about facts. They cared about compliance. He requested the arborist's report. They said it would cost $125. He paid. When it arrived, it was 3 pages long, one photo of a knot in the bark, labeled possible fungal intrusion. No core samples, no root inspection, no on-site visit. The arborist wasn't local. The signature looked scanned. Jake wasn't stupid. This was a sham. He hired his own arborist, a real one. Someone who climbed the tree, tested the soil, and confirmed the oak was healthier than 90% of the county's trees. He sent the report. Certified mail. No response. Then, the fines started. $250. For non-compliance. Another $250. For failure to submit a removal timeline. By month 3, the total hit, $200. And then the HOA slapped a lien on his home, neighbors whispered. Claire heard it at the PTA meeting. Jake's going to lose his house over a tree. Some shook their heads in pity. Others, especially those who dined with Diane, muttered about making an example. One Saturday, Jake came home to find bright orange surveyor flags planted in a semicircle around the oak. A notice taped to his door. Boundary assessment in progress. Do not disturb. He hadn't given permission. He called the HOA. Silence. That night, he sat at the kitchen table, letters spread like battle plans. Lily slept upstairs. Claire rubbed his shoulders, but he barely felt it. They're not going to stop, he said. This isn't about the tree. It's about control. Then, like a gut punch, the email arrived. Subject, final notice. Enforcement action initiated. Attached, a court summons. The HOA was taking him to civil court to force the tree's removal and make him pay their legal fees. Jake stared at the screen. This wasn't fines anymore. This was a legal war. One that could drain their savings, ruin their credit, force them to sell. Something inside him snapped. Not fear, not anger. Resolve. He didn't sleep. He dug. Meeting minutes, bylaws, property records. And then buried in a 2003 township filing, he found it. En original covenant exception. The oak tree predated the subdivision. It was grandfathered in. Protected. The HOA knew. They'd quietly voted to erase it, no minutes recorded. But the document existed. And Jake had it. He sent it to their attorney. 3 days later, the lien was lifted. The court date? Canceled. For a moment, he thought it was over. He was wrong, because Diane Caldwell wasn't done. She called an emergency neighborhood meeting open to all. No agenda, just one line in the email. Important community safety issue to be addressed. Jake and Claire walked in together, hearts pounding. The community center was packed, folding chairs full, people standing, phones recording. Diane stood at the front, poised, blade-sharp hair, clipboard in hand. Some homeowners, she began, believe they are above the rules. All eyes turned to Jake. She didn't mention the tree. Not yet. Instead, she brought up nuisance wildlife, raccoons, squirrels, carrying disease, damaging property. Jake's tree, a nesting hub, a threat to children. Then she dropped the bomb. We've received multiple complaints, and we have photographic evidence. A slide appeared, grainy night photo of the oak. And in the branches, something hanging. At first, Jake didn't recognize it. Then he did. His father's old leather work gloves, tied to the tire swing with twine. A memorial. A tribute Claire hung after he passed. Diane called it an unapproved decorative structure in violation of Section 4.1b. The room buzzed. Someone laughed. Jake stood. I've followed every rule, he said, voice steady. Paid every fee. Respected every boundary. But you're not here to protect the neighborhood. You're here to punish me for not bending. Diane smiled. Cold. Then let the neighborhood decide, she said. She called for a vote. Should the tree be removed for the safety and aesthetic integrity of Willow Creek Estates? Hands rose. 12, 15, 21. More than half. It was over. Or so they thought. As people filed out, one man stayed behind. Quiet. From the end of the cul-de-sac. He approached Jake, hand in his pocket. You don't know me, he said. I'm Frank. I was on the original HOA board, back in 2001. He pulled out a small USB drive. There's things they don't want you to see, he whispered. Meet me tomorrow. Same time. Don't tell anyone. Then he vanished into the dark. Jake stood there, the drive in his palm, heart hammering. What was on it? And why had Frank risked everything to give it to him? Because the truth wasn't just about a tree. It was about a cover-up, and it went much deeper than anyone realized. To be continued. The storm rolled in just before dawn. Jake sat at his kitchen table, the USB drive resting in front of him like a live wire. He hadn't slept. The weight of Frank's warning, the silence after their meeting, it kept him awake, pulse thrumming like a struck bell. He plugged it in. Folders appeared. Scanned documents. Audio files. Meeting recordings from over a decade ago. And then the bomb, a PDF labeled Willow Creek Land Acquisition. Phase 2. Confidential. Jake opened it. His blood turned to ice. Buried in legal jargon was the truth. The HOA had never legally owned the land behind his house. The lot they claimed the tree threatened, still under a defunct development company, never transferred. No shared boundary, meaning Section 7.3, the rule they used to threaten him, didn't apply. But that wasn't the worst. Attached were emails between Diane Caldwell and a real estate developer, dated just 3 months before the tree complaint. Once the Mercer property is destabilized, we can trigger a distressed sale. One read, the land is prime for expansion. The tree is in the way. They were